Good evening, everyone, and welcome. This is Ghosts of the London Underground Part 2. This part is going to start. Covent Garden tube station is on the corner of Longacre, and it's one of the few underground stations in central London that doesn't have any escalators. So you can either get to the platforms by stairs, that's 190 plus steps, or lift, and it's on the Piccadilly line between Leicester Square and Holborn. And the station is said to be haunted by the ghost of an old English actor by the name of William Terrace. He was born on the 20th of February 1847, William Charles James Lewin. He took to the stage in 1867 under the name of William Terrace. Quite quickly established himself as an extremely popular actor in Victorian London. Had a great variety of swashbuckling and heroic roles. He was a bit of an action man. He was given the nickname Breezy Bill. On the 16th of December 1897, as he was entering the Adelphi Theatre on the Strand to prepare for that night's performance. The play was called Secret Service. He was stabbed to death by a deranged and disgruntled actor that he had befriended and helped out by the name of Richard Arthur Prince. And as he lay dying in the arms of his leading lady, he apparently whispered, "I'll be back." An employee of the London Underground saw his ghost in the station in 1955, and he later on identified him from a photograph that was taken in the actor's heyday. Described him as very tall and distinguished looking, wearing an old-fashioned grey suit with a funny looking old-style collar and light-coloured gloves. It's interesting that people say that they see William Terrace at Covent Garden station. When he died, the station wasn't there, but apparently there was a bakery on the site, which he frequented quite a lot. In addition to haunting Covent Garden station, which stands quite proudly right in the centre of probably the busiest part of the West End, Breezy Bill is also said to haunt the Lyceum Theatre, which is just off the Strand, where staff, again in the 1950s, witnessed a very similar apparition to the one seen at Covent Garden Station. They gave their ghost a name. They came to call him Charlie. And the last reported sighting of William Terrace at Covent Garden Station was in 1972. Although many members of staff have, in the years following, reported hearing strange noises and phantom footsteps on the platform when no one was there. Elephant and Castle tube station. Now that station's on the Bank branch between Kennington and Borough, and it's the southernmost station on the Bakerloo line. And of course, it's said to be haunted. Maintenance and cleaning staff working in the station late at night have reported hearing the sound of someone running along the deserted platform. This phantom runner has been heard on numerous occasions, but has never been seen. Also, strange tapping sounds have been heard on the platform, and the doors in the station have been known to suddenly slam for no apparent reason. And a ghost that has been seen by staff and commuters alike is that of a young woman who has been seen boarding a train at the station, only to disappear completely once the train starts to pull out of the station. Embankment tube station. Embankment station is near Trafalgar Square and Fleet Street, not too far from Charing Cross itself. It's one of the network's busiest interchange stations, and it serves the Bakerloo, Circle, District and Northern Line. Over the years, many of the station's staff and the contractors have reported strange feelings and unusual experiences in one of the disused tunnels that run under the River Thames. The tunnel is known as Page's Walk. Witnesses claim to have heard and seen doors in the tunnel opening and then slamming shut without any human assistance, without any wind, and the feeling that they have been watched by unseen eyes. They've also reported the presence of cold spots in the station at night, and that the atmosphere inside the tunnel sometimes feels very menacing, very oppressive. It seems that whoever haunts Page's Walk has no real desire to share that tunnel with the living. Now let's talk about Farringdon tube station, which is in Clerkenwell in the London borough of Islington. It's said to be haunted by the ghost of a 13-year-old girl named Anne, or Annie Naylor, an apprentice hat maker. In 1758, this unfortunate girl was brutally murdered by the man to whom she was indentured as a servant, and his wife was supposedly involved as well. The murder took place in a building that was demolished to make way for the station, which opened in September 1863. And many people over the years have heard her tormented screams and cries in the bowels of the station. And it earns her the terrifying nickname of the Screaming Spectre. Now let's talk about Highgate. The Highgate high-level station and the platforms, which are now derelict, abandoned. They're situated in a cutting between two pairs of tunnels directly above today's Highgate station, which is on the Northern Line. And although these days those buildings and those platforms are off limits to the general public, they can be seen quite clearly from various points in the surrounding area. These high-level platforms once served a railway line that ran from Finsbury Park to Alexandra Palace, and in the late 1930s a plan was put forward to fully electrify the line and to integrate it into the Northern Line. But then the outbreak of the Second World War put paid to that. The plan was never implemented. The line was continually used by steam trains until the 50s, and the rails weren't moved until the 1980s. But according to local residents, at night people hear still the eerie sound of trains passing through this disused cutting, which is now overgrown with weeds. It's been heard on many occasions. Finally, we'll talk about, on this tour, Hyde Park Corner. It's one of the few stations on the London Underground that has no associated buildings above ground. The entire station is completely underground. In November 1978, a gentleman by the name of Barry Oakley was the station supervisor. He was working the overnight shift at Hyde Park Corner. He had, as usual, closed and emptied the station. He had shut the escalators down, having checked that he had properly removed the breakers, which are a piece of equipment designed to stop the escalators from moving. He and a colleague returned to the station supervisor's office. At about 2:30 a.m, there was a commotion in the booking hall area. He and his colleague left the office to investigate. They discovered that the escalator they had come up on was actually back on and working. They both found that very strange. With the breakers out, the escalator wasn't, as far as they could tell, connected to any electricity supply whatsoever.
Yeah, go for it. Cheers.
And to start an escalator, a special key was needed. It was about 3:20 when he and his colleague got back to the supervisor's office. They had conducted a very thorough, but a very fruitless search to discover what had caused this commotion. Mr. Oakley felt more than a little unnerved. Decided to make them both a hot cup of tea. As he did so, a feeling that he was being watched by an invisible presence in the office grew. Also, the temperature in the office suddenly plummeted to such an extent that he could actually see his breath as he exhaled. At that point, he turned around and noticed that his colleague was leaning against a table that was up against the office wall, and that he was extremely pale and clearly in a very distressed state. It took Mr. Oakley about 5-10 minutes to get his colleague to open up about what was wrong, and when he did, his colleague simply asked, "Did you see the face?" His colleague then told him that he, Mr. Oakley, had been making the tea, and while that was happening, a disembodied head had floated through the office wall and had spent some time staring at the pair of them. Shortly after, Mr. Oakley's colleague decided he could no longer stay on duty that night, and he left the station to go home. And he never returned to work on the London Underground again. Join me for part 3 of Ghosts of the London Underground very, very soon. Please subscribe, please like, share and comment on this video, and I'll see you again.